The purpose of this module is to basically emphasize for each and every firefighter that they are fire behavior specialists out on the ground. We want to encourage people to go back to those basic assessments that we have taught them through 190 and 290 and 390 and 490. It's the basic preface there that people have the skills to make fire behavior predictions when they're out on the line.
Believe me, I'm certainly glad I went to that fire school with my neighbors last week. It's a mighty good training session and prepared us to help one another in case we got a fire. We learned that a few men can handle a lot of fire when they're trained. You know, I believe I'll never forget that fire school. We learned that it took a combination of air, heat, and fuel to make a fire burn. This is the combustion triangle. Remove any one of these elements and the fire goes out. Remove the fuel side, the triangle is broken and the fire goes out. Remove the heat side, it is broken, the fire goes out. Remove the air side and the fire goes out.
The fire behavior basics are fire behavior triangle. It's fuels, weather, and topography. So when you as a firefighter are going out there, whether you're going out on an initial attack fire or you're going out to a large-scale incident or you're going out to do a burn, you need to be paying attention to, okay, well, what's the weather? What's it been? How is it going to affect my operations today and potentially tomorrow? And what are the fuels set up to be? Are you doing a prescribed burn maybe against some of the snowpack? Are you doing a burn when your fuel moistures are low but expecting your weather to help compensate some of that? Everybody should be going back reviewing the fundamentals. The higher up you go in the food chain, most people, it's very easy to lose the basics. And I think a lot of times when we're in those higher echelon positions, it's like you forget what it's like to be on the ground. And so I think that to bring people back and say, no, this is how it's happening on the ground. We need to review this information. So it's the beginning of the fire season, and there is a lot of information out there that we can collect that can give us the baseline information to tie it to the fire behavior triangle. And there is the old saying that only fools predict a fire season, but I think there's some elements there that can really help preface the upcoming season, whether it's what the fuels are sitting at based on what was the snowpack, how much moisture received in the spring, maybe how your fuels were burning when you were doing your spring burning program, how's the weather setting up, is there a certain geographical area that's starting to see fire season starting earlier. So I've created a baseline of information pre-season, and now I'm out on the fire line, and I'm walking the line, and I'm seeing that the fuels are stressed. The leaves are starting to curl, the colors are starting to change. It looks like it's fall, but it's July. Those are some of the things I'm putting in my mind. Or if I do a moisture probe, and I look at some of the larger fuels, and they're single digits already. Or I'm kicking the dirt and kicking away rotted logs, and there's no moisture left in them. You're looking at your current fire behavior and you make an assessment. Are your lookouts in the right place? Do they need to be moved? What's your communication based on your current fire behavior and what you're seeing and what you're expected based on what you've picked up from your data gathering or your assessment period? Are your escape routes and safety zones, are they adequate? So what does all this information mean now that we've gathered out on the line? What it means is you have validated your LCES and now you are ready for your tactical operations for the day.
Don's crew was wasting a lot of energy trying to knock the fire out of a big bush. He had them use an indirect attack. They backed up and made the line where the fuel was light. They threw extra fuel out of the way. Then they burned out the fuel between their line and the fire. This burning out is another way to remove the fuel leg of the triangle.
We all need to be responsible for our own actions out on the fire line. We can't be dependent on somebody else to always take care of us. And so that comes to the basics that we need to be paying attention to as far as the fire behavior triangle and how is that going to impact us. We need to have a really good understanding of what's the fuels, weather, and topography. And until we have those elements, we're not going to be able to implement or successfully implement tactical operations until we have our situational awareness of the fire behavior and what's going to happen with the fire behavior. You got to constantly be keeping yourself abreast of the situation. That's the art. You've got the hard science side of fire behavior that, yeah, you can have all these models spew out numbers and it's black and white, but until you're actually on the ground, walking it, looking at it, assessing and reevaluating, does those numbers mean anything? That's the art. So you have the hard science and you have the art side of fire behavior. Feedback is really important in order to have adequate fire behavior predictions. Whether you're on a initial attack fire and you're providing feedback to your local FMO, or you're providing feedback to a fire behavior analyst or an incident meteorologist. And the feedback is, when you're out on the line and you're working in Division Alpha for a week, you are the fire behavior specialist for that particular piece of line. You know what's been happening, you know the local wind events, you know the little anomalies that have been happening every day. I can guarantee your weather observations or your weather forecasts will be a lot better if you can provide that incident meteorologist some information from the ground to help them get up to speed. Same with the fire behavior analyst. If you provide them feedback, it will only make their forecast that much better. So one of the things that I want to make sure that we include is making sure that people take the time out to take the weather throughout the event, whether it's on the hour or every half hour. It really gives people that time to raise their head, gather their situational awareness, take a breather, look around, what's changing, is there something that needs to be readjusted based on the information they're gathering when they take the weather. So many times we get so focused on getting from point A to point B, just putting in line and putting our heads down and digging. We forget to raise our heads and really look around and look at the changing conditions. And I think that's really important. That's something that we really need to encourage people to do.